cathexis. The psychic energy, cathexis, processing itself as an executive force, is formidable. The reserves of intelligence are the different parts of the being and are denominated as bound cathexis or psychic energy in a potential and static state. The bound cathexis orients us in the work related with the disintegration of the ego and the liberation of the mind. The bound cathexis, contained in the mind, guides us in the work related with revolutionary psychology and with integral revolution. The values of the being constitute the bound cathexis. Only the bound cathexis can liberate the mind through the disintegration of the undesirable psychic elements which have been segregated by means of structural and transactional analysis. Bound cathexis is different from loose cathexis, since the latter is the psychic energy which the ego utilizes to dominate the mind and the body for its manifestation. We have to permit the bound cathexis, which is the dynamic psychic energy, to be the one to direct our existence. We have to work psychologically in order for the bound cathexis to enter into activity and dominate, and govern the free cathexis, which is the energy of the body and which has always been pitifully dominated by the loose cathexis, which is the ego. Mystical death. We have suffered much with the members of the Gnostic movement. Many have sworn fidelity before the altar of the sanctuaries. Many have solemnly promised to work in the great work until total self-realization. Many are those who have cried swearing to never ever withdraw from the Gnostic movement, and, however, it is painful to say it, everything has been in vain. Almost everyone fled, they became enemies, blaspheming, fornicating, committing adultery, and went on the black path. Really, these terrible contradictions of the human being are due to the human being having a fatal foundation and a tragic basis. Said foundation is the plurality of the I, the plurality of the loose cathexis which we all carry within. It is urgent to know that the I is a mass of psychic energies, loose cathexis, which reproduce in the lower animal depths of man. Each loose cathexis is a small I which enjoys certain auto-independence. These loose cathexis struggle among themselves. I should read a newspaper, says the intellectual I. I will ride a bicycle, argues the motor I. Am hungry, declares the I of digestion. I am cold, says the I of metabolism. No one will impede me, exclaims the passionate I in defense of any of these loose cathexis. Conclusion. The I is a legion of loose cathexis. These loose cathexis have already been studied by Franz Hartmann. They live in the lower animal depths of man. They eat, sleep, reproduce and live at the expense of our vital principles or free cathexis, muscular and nervous kinetic energy. Each of the I which in their mass constitute the loose cathexis, the I, projects itself in the different levels of the mind and travels, longing for the satisfaction of its desires. The I, the ego, the loose cathexis, can never perfect itself. Man is the city of 9 gates. Within this city live many citizens which do not even know each other. Each of these citizens, each of those small I has its projects and its own mind. Those are the merchants which Jesus had to cast out of the temple with the whip of willpower. Those merchants should be killed. Now we will understand the reason for so many internal contradictions in the individual. As long as the loose cathexis exists, there can be no peace. The I are the causa causarum of all the internal contradictions. The I which swears fidelity to gnosis is replaced by another which hates it. Conclusion. Man is an irresponsible being that does not have a permanent center of gravity. Man is a being which is not yet attained. Man is not yet a man, he is merely an intellectual animal. It is a very great error to call soul the legion of the I. Really and truly, man has within his essence the psychic material, the material for the soul, but he does not yet have a soul. The Gospels say, of what use is it to win the world if you are going to lose your soul? Jesus said to Nicodemus that it was necessary to be born from water and the Spirit in order to enjoy the attributes which correspond to a true soul. It is impossible to fabricate a soul if we do not undergo mystical death. It is only through the death of the I that we can establish a permanent center of consciousness within our own interior essence. Said center is that which is called soul. Only a man with a soul can have true continuity of purpose. It is only in a man with a soul that internal contradictions do not exist and there is true inner peace. The I foolishly spends the psychic material, the cathexis, in explosions of anger, covetousness, lust, envy, pride, laziness, gluttony, etc. It is logical that as long as the psychic material, the cathexis, does not accumulate, the soul cannot be fabricated. In order to fabricate something, one needs the materia prima. Without the materia prima, nothing can be fabricated because from nothing, nothing can be obtained. When the I begins to die, the materia prima begins to accumulate. When the materia prima begins to accumulate, the establishment of a center of permanent consciousness is initiated. When the I has absolutely died, the center of permanent consciousness has remained totally established. The capital of psychic material accumulates when the ego dies, since the squanderer of energy is eliminated. In this manner, the permanent center of consciousness is established. Such a marvelous center is the soul. Only the one who has established within himself the permanent center of consciousness can be faithful to gnosis. Only he can have continuity of purpose. Those who do not possess such a center can be in gnosis today and against it tomorrow, today with one school, tomorrow with another. This type of person does not have real existence. Mystical death is an arduous and difficult area of the revolution of the dialectic. The loose cathexis is dissolved on the basis of rigorous comprehension. Interaction with our fellowmen, dealing with people, is a mirror where we can see ourselves at full length. In dealing with people, our hidden defects leap forward, they flourish, and if we are vigilant, we then see them. Every defect should first be intellectually analyzed and then studied with meditation. Many individuals attain perfect chastity in the physical world, but ended up being great fornicators and frightening sinners when they were subjected to the test in the superior worlds. They had put an end to their defects in the physical world, but in other levels of the mind, they continued with their loose cathexis. When a defect is totally comprehended in all the levels of the mind, its corresponding loose cathexis disintegrates. In other words, a small I dies. It is urgent to die from instant to instant. The soul is born with the death of the I. We need the death of the I and a total M in order for the plenitude of the bound cathexis, the being, to express himself dissolving the loose cathexis. It is only by minutely studying the loose cathexis, the I, that we can totally dissolve it. We should minutely observe the thought processes, the different functionalisms of desire, the habits which form our personality, the sophisms of distraction, the fallacy of the ego, and our sexual impulses. We have to study how they react before the impacts of the exterior world and see how they associate with each other. By comprehending all the processes of the loose cathexis, of the pluralized I, the latter is dissolved. Then, only the divinity is manifested through and within us. Negligence. Negligence and carelessness lead every human being to failure. To be negligent is, as we would say, neck-legger, to not elect, to surrender to the arms of failure. Negligence is of the ego and its opposite is intuition, which is of the being. The ego can neither elect nor distinguish, but the being can. It is only by means of the living incarnation of the revolution of the dialectic that we will learn to elect in order to not have any more failures in life. Transactions. 97% of human thoughts are negative and harmful. What we are here is the result of our own mental processes. Man should auto-explore his own mind if he wishes to identify himself, value himself, and auto-imagine himself correctly. The difficulty of profound, introspective analysis lies in counter-transference. This difficulty is eliminated through structural and transactional analysis. It is important to segregate and to dissolve certain undesirable psychic aggregates which are fixed in our mind in a traumatic manner. Transactional and structural analysis are intelligently combined in the matter of the exploration of the ego. Any psychic aggregate should be previously segregated before its final dissolution,